have a great presentation planned for tonight. And before we go into it, let's just check in with everybody. How are we all doing? If you could just give us a thumbs up or the little heart emoji, or give us a little hi on the comment section and let us know that you're here, that'd be great. We hope you guys are all doing well, that you're staying healthy, staying happy and calm during this time. We do miss you guys at the stores. And as you know, April is our rec month. So basically we have a lot of great items on sale right now. So I'm just gonna go over to the shared screen here. And if you go to our website, it's this big Get Wrecked, check out our shopping. And we've got gear on sale. We've got Rex lights and reels are on sale right now. You guys can see everything here. Okay, so go and check out all the cool items that you need to go and discover the wrecks of South Florida. And let's see, where are we? Going back over. All right, and let's get rid of this here so we can see who our guest presenter is. All right, everybody's starting to write in. They're saying hello to you, Lance. Everybody, this is Lance Bark, and he's going to be talking about the history of the wrecks of South Florida. You guys, you're in for a real treat because I met Lance when I started at 4C 8 years ago. That's right, guys. I've been here for 8 years as your social media gal, Nicole. If you don't know me, hi. And when I met Lance, I had no idea the wealth of knowledge that he had for all these different wreck sites here in South Florida. Like, if you ever get him in the shop, you can actually tell him what wreck you want to dive, and he can like draw out every single room, every single feature on that wreck. So he is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm going to let Lance tell you about these great wrecks that we have in South Florida so that you can maybe go dive some if you haven't dove any of those dives yet. Wow, I'm really tongue-tied today, guys. So, all right, Lance, it's all you.
Hey, everybody. A big thank you to Skip and Kathy and all the 4C dive shops, Pompano, Boca, Riviera Beach, and Skip and Kathy are entering their 40th year, or over 40, it's going to be 45 years soon, of serving the dive community of South Florida. And what a fantastic job. And I'm proud to say I worked for 4C for many, many years. I met Gary when he was manager of the Oakland Park store, late 70s, early 80s. So that was a very dark day. But anyway, I survived that. And a little bit about me, I got certified in 1975. 1979, I started a 2-year degree in commercial diving up in Jensen Beach, Florida Institute of Technology. That's where I met my longtime buddy, TJ, Todd Finlayson. He was my roommate for many years, and that's another set of stories. I worked for a commercial dive outfit, hard hat umbilical diving for many years out of Miami Beach. So I did that for many years. The name of the company was Ocean Salvers, and I got to travel all throughout the Caribbean and the Northeast doing repairs, underwater welding, underwater burning, raising ships, repairing hulls, damaged, whatever. Many years in hyperbaric medicine. I started operating hyperbaric chambers and recompression chambers in 1979. And I worked for 4C for many years, started out in the, when it was on Atlantic Boulevard, and worked for them on the new store over in Pompano on US 1. Big shout out to the Big Dive Club. Big Dive Club, if you're not familiar with, we have our own Facebook page, so join the Big Dive Club. That's where we post all the dives. And so anyway, enough about me and diving. Just thanks again to 4C family. What a great staff. So Nicole, oh, there's a good picture. Let's talk about Florida and wrecks. First of all, Florida is a peninsula. It sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean like a big sore thumb. And for hundreds and hundreds of years, galleons, schooners, frigates, tankers, merchant ships, war vessels keep bumping into the state of Florida. Very, very annoying. And it's great for divers because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of wrecks throughout the coast of Florida, Gulf Coast, throughout the Keys, all throughout Miami, from Fort Lauderdale all the way north to St. Augustine, Jacksonville, the whole area. There's just tons and tons of underwater things to see and do in Florida. And lucky enough, we live in the state The Keys are 2 hours away. We've got massive cave diving 4 hours to the north. All beautiful caves. I love cave diving. I got a bunch of friends that I do that with. So anyway, so we're gonna do a very small portion. There's so many wrecks. I'm just gonna try and cover a small amount of some of my favorite wrecks, which is just really a drop in the bucket of what's available. So hopefully I'll cover some of your favorite wrecks. These are some of my favorite wrecks that I've dove many years since 1975. So let's go. We're going to start off with some shallow stuff. The first wreck we're going to hit is the SS INCHULVA. Now the SS INCHULVA was built in 1892. She was 386 feet long. She was a freighter, and she was coming from Texas loaded with coal, cotton, sizzle, all sorts of stuff. And in the year 1903, she was coming around the Keys, leaving from Texas, heading north. She was headed to England in September of 1903, and that's a key point. September in Florida. What do you think that means? So coming up right around Upper Keys, Lower Miami, the skies get dark, waves pick up, winds pick up. It's so brutal that they can't even see land anymore. They were on their way to, I think, the North Carolinas, and they were going to head due east over to England. Long story short of it, the SS INCHULVA foundered off of the coast of Florida. And the reason I want to start with this wreck is this is where I started my underwater journey in 1975. This was my open water checkout dive with my dear friend Neil Lawrence in 1975, and that was our checkout dive. The SS INCHULVA is a really great story. Wish I had my book. Oh. This is a great little book about it. It has the history of the wreck. I've got about 400 or 500 books in my nautical dive collection about wrecks and everything happening. But anyway, we're going to go through some books later that you can get through 4C. So 29 crew members, wreck off the coast of Florida, 9 perished. And when some of the battered crew members landed on shore, they didn't know where they were. The whole east coast of Florida had a hurricane. And they say the rescuers came up, the crew members didn't know where they were, and they said, "Where are we?" We're off the coast of Delray Beach. This wreck is known as the Delray Wreck. It's scattered over a few hundred feet right off the south end of Delray Beach. When I got certified there was a lot of wrecks showing. It changes throughout the years with sand, winter storms, but it's still there. You can 15 to 20 feet of water. You can snorkel it, you can dive it, and it's got a great history. That book. The grandson of the engineer on this vessel who perished finds a trunk in the attic in England, and it's got love letters from the engineer to his grandmother, the son, and they find it in a steamer truck 50 or 60 years later, and that's how most of that book came about. It's a great story. So anyway, that's the SS INCHULVA. And we're going to go on to the next wreck. We're going to try and cover a lot of wrecks. So, all right, the NOULA Express comes out of, built in 1939 or 1931. I've got conflicting reports through my archives. 114 feet long. You can see the lower left side. She's sitting upright. She's a Danish freighter, sold in 1954. She was renamed a couple of times, the Treyland, the QUALMAN. She was seized in a drug bust, sunk in July of 1988. She's a depth of 74 feet. It's a fantastic wreck, upright, tremendous amount of growth, a lot of penetration. She lies east of the Ancient Mariner in the United Caribbean. We're going to cover those later. But the NOULA Express, as you can see, upright, great penetration, tremendous amount of growth. It's also a fantastic, and it's 74 feet deep, so everybody can do that one. So we're going to go to the next one. One of our favorites, the Sea Emperor and the United Caribbean. This is a multiple story. The Sea Emperor is to the, you see that dive slate there? That's the Sea Emperor upside down. The Sea Emperor is what you call a hopper barge. A A hopper barge has openings through the bottom filled with rock, sand, gravel, and it's great for making barriers, sand, moving stuff. The openings open up in the bottom, and all the sand and rocks go through wherever you want it. The thing flipped. It's 171 feet long. It sunk in 1991 it was being towed. And so it sank upside down. So the openings in the bottom, you can see, you can go through the openings in the bottom, go throughout all the different sections of the barge, and all of the big cement pipes that she was carrying at the time lying to the east, full of Goliath grouper. And there we go. You can penetrate the entire wreck from one end to the other. You can see all the big cement pipes lying next to her when she flipped. Tremendous amount of Goliath grouper, moray eels, sharks. It's a great dive. Now, in between the Sea Emperor, there's a long pile of jetty rocks, approximately 400 feet long, running north to south. And then you're going to come to the second wreck, the United Caribbean. Now, the United Caribbean is 147 feet long, and she was called the Golden Venture. She was grounded off of Rockaway Beach in New York, where I'm from, Long Island. Did a lot of wreck diving on Long Island and New York area. She was full of Chinese illegal aliens, and the thing ran aground, and everybody's jumping off the ship, and it was a real disaster. So she's big, but through the hurricane, she's broken up in 3 distinct pieces. You've got the stern section, you've got the midships flayed open, and you've got the bow section. She was sunk in August of 2000. So there's a lot of things to explore. Also 70-foot depth range, within the range of basic open water, advanced open water. It's easily done. A lot of current sometimes during those wrecks, and you can easily do both wrecks on the same dive. So that's also another one of the favorite dive spots with tremendous life and critters going on there. The Ancient Mariner. Now, this is an interesting wreck because the Ancient Mariner, as you can see from the dive slates there, the metamorphosis of going from a intact wreck to how she is today through many storms and hurricanes. But the Ancient Mariner is 165 feet long, and she was a U.S. Coast Guard cutter called the Nemesis. She was built in 1934. She was also used to fight prohibition and rum runners throughout here in the Bahamas. In World War II, she was a Nazi U-boat chaser. She was also a convoy escort, and she was decommissioned in 1964. So she saw a lot of action, and she's got a tremendous amount of history to her. I remember one of my good friends told me, I don't really like diving wrecks. It's just a piece of steel. Well, on one hand, it is just a piece of rusting steel, but there's a story behind all the wrecks off of Florida. And if you're a dive nerd and you love history, I think that's a big part of diving these wrecks. Instead of diving just on a piece of steel, you're going to know a little bit more about what you're diving on, and there's a rich maritime history that goes along with it. So she was decommissioned in 1964, purchased in 1979. She was a floating restaurant called Livingston Landing. She was closed in 1981, and my father, who used to save everything, this is an original newspaper clipping of Livingston Landing as a restaurant on the New River. Unfortunately, an outbreak of hepatitis does not do well for restaurants. She sank. You can see the pictures. My dad took these pictures. I got another one here. This is a picture of her on her side in the New River. My dad was there, took these pictures. When I was a commercial diver, we actually bid on this job to raise her, but we were outbid or underbid. We did not get that job. So then she was refloated, tried it again as a restaurant as the Ancient Mariner, and that kind of didn't go so well. Because in 1986, a cook had hepatitis, and you can't serve hepatitis on a restaurant. It doesn't go well. Anyway, she was sunk as an artificial reef in 1991 at a depth of 70 feet. And again, if we can go back to the other slide, Nicole, where the underwater metamorphosis was, she has degraded over the years, but there's lots of life on her, complete penetration from bow to stern. There's a lot going on in that wreck, and that's certainly well within sport diving limits for almost everybody. It's a lot of fun. It's been down for a long time, and I always love diving that wreck. All right, let's moving on to the TRACY. The TRACY, also known as the Ken Vitale or Ken Vitelli. This is named after a local dive instructor for South Florida. She's 131 feet long. She's an oil rig supply boat. She was also seized for drug smuggling. Go figure, Florida, drugs, a lot of seizing going on. And she was sunk as an artificial reef in 1999. She lies at a depth of 70 feet. She lies in between the J. Scuddy and the Hersey Mazus, which is to the north and the south. She lies in the middle. She has a large overhang. You can see right there with all the fish congregating over the overhang. That has penetration from bow to stern. A lot of inner compartments on that wreck. A great dive. Shallow, a lot of bottom time. Get certified in nitrox if you're not already. Increase your bottom time, eliminate a lot of surface interval, a lot of bottom time on your second dive. 4C has great courses with nitrox. So the TRACY is a great dive, not to be missed. Moving on to a little bit deeper wreck. Now, this is one of my favorite wrecks. It's also new to South Florida, the Lady Luck. As you can see from the slate, she's huge. She's 325 feet long, completely intact, sitting upright at a depth of about 130 feet to the sand. This is a little bit deeper. She was a sludge tanker, wastewater, oil sludge. She operated out of New York for over 50 years. She was built in 1967. Sitting upright at 135 feet, she was funded by the Pompano Beach and Isle Casino Racing. And 4C was a major sponsor of cleaning her up and getting her prepared for sinking, cleaning up all the oil, hydraulic oil, diesel fuel, making her safe for divers, cutting holes in her. The whole deck is outfitted with gambling-themed statues, mermaids, slot machines, poker playing, octopus. At 325 feet long, this is going to take you several dives to really get a grasp of just how big she is and how much there is to see. There are 3 or 4 internal cargo holds on the Lady Luck. And if you're lucky, when you go down into the holds, you're going to see the home of several Goliath grouper. They're always on that wreck, along with moray eels, huge schools of barracuda along the bridge. Atlantic spadefish are very common, not to mention all your tropicals. And you can see Nicole has some slides of, since she was sunk in July of 2016, you can see to the far left the statues and all of the card sharks playing poker, octopus, and you can see how quickly the growth has taken over in what, 4 short years. You can see the Mermaid, how she looked when she first went down. She's covered in coral. So Amy and I love diving this wreck. Now on this wreck, it's 135 feet or so. Sometimes the currents are strong. You can do a hot drop, and when you take your advanced open water or your wreck diving specialty, you may be doing hot drops. That's when you jump off the boat. The current is too strong to tie in with an anchor, so there's no descent or ascent line. You're going to need a lift bag, a reel. You jump off down current, and you land on the wreck. You do your entire dive. You drift along with the current, and at the end of the dive, you deploy your lift bag, and we'll go into some reels and lift bags that I have here. Definitely nitrox dive. You're going to need at least 2 computers, one for a backup. I always dive with 2, and on the really deep dives, I always have 3 computers, 2 lift bags, 2 reels. So a little deeper diving requires more advanced training, and 4C has got the best instructors on the planet. So enjoy those classes, so you can start doing this deeper stuff. Lady Luck, not to be missed. The QUALMAN TUGS. This is a great artificial reef that's a series of multiple wrecks right off of Hillsborough Inlet. You've got 4 main wreck hulls. You've got the J. Dorman schooner. You've got the Alpha, a steel tug. This is also around the 75-foot depth range. This was all sunk around 1985, 88, and 89. a multiple wreck dive site all in a row. It's a great drift dive. You start at one end, lots of stingrays, sharks, Goliath grouper hang out, sea turtles. The growth is phenomenal. It's been down for many years. Being that it's a drift dive, you're going to jump off the boat, which is like a hot drop. You have your dive flag with you. You do the drift dive, and the dive boat will pick you up. And the great thing about the QUALMAN tugs, that the end of the dive, the northwest, as you're traveling north with the current, there's a reef directly to your left, which would be the west, and you can pick up the reef and finish your dive along a beautiful reef right off the QUALMAN tugs. So there's a lot going on here. You can great photo opportunities, plenty of life on these things. It's a fairly shallow dive, a lot of bottom time, and you can finish off the rest of your dive with a nice drift reef dive. Next, Rodeo 25. Now you can see from the dive slate that she's pretty tore up, but when she went down, the Rodeo 25 is a great wreck, 215 feet long. She was built in 1956. She had 30 years of service as a Dutch freighter. Again, another drug seizure. So what's bad for the druggies is good for South Florida divers. We have a tremendous amount of ships that have been confiscated and seized up throughout the whole coast of Florida. They make tremendous artificial reefs. The other thing about artificial reefs is, why do we make artificial reefs? Fish love structure. Spearfishing, fishermen love wrecks. The growth that starts on these wrecks are phenomenal, and before you know it, it's a complete underwater garden within a year or two. So the artificial reef program through Broward, Pompano area, Miami, all of Florida, promote fish growth, fish habitats, and it's good for divers, good for the fishermen, spearfishing. Everybody loves artificial wrecks. And plus there's a history to it too. So Hurricane Irma in 2017, she tilted the wreck, twisted her up a little bit. She's at a depth of 125 feet, so another advanced dive. You need a lift bag, you need a reel. You can see that the slide on the left, she's tilted to her starboard side. Great penetration amidships is the open cargo hold. You can penetrate the entire stern and the bridge. The bow is completely intact. Tremendous amount of life. Goliath grouper are big on this one over here. I love diving the rodeo. It's just usually always good conditions, good current, and the visibility, it's phenomenal. Tremendous amount of life, and you can go in the engine room, travel the whole stern area, and then you shoot a bag, and then you drift, and the boat comes and picks you up. So in your advanced courses, you learn how to deploy lift bags and do some hanging decompression, drift decompression through your advanced nitrox courses and decompression procedures. I was teaching for 4C for 12 years, and these are a lot of fun, those courses. You improve your skills, you learn new skills, and you start doing some deeper stuff. Moving right along, the RSB-1. Now you can see that she has a very interesting outline and shape. She was a oil company tender. She's 160 feet long. She's also known as the Jim Torgensen. He was named, this ship was also named for Broward County Sheriff's Bomb Squad personnel. And it ended up built in 1966, 160 feet long, and she was purchased by the U.S. Navy in 1971 and was decommissioned, and then she was sunk in 1994. So the main deck's at 100 feet. She's sitting upright. The maximum depth is 115. That dive slate is a great little way to penetrate or do the entire wreck. If you start at the top of the bridge, go down into the main cabin, you're going to find a stairwell going down 2 more flights, and heading directly after is a main hallway that's going to take you throughout the entire length of the ship, and going through hallways and tunnels, and it's going to pop out the stern, and then you can work your way back to wherever they tied in, if it's a tie-in, or so you can do the entire wreck. It's not that deep, only like I said, 115. That's always a lot of life on the RSB-1. Captain Dan. The Captain Dan has a special place in my heart, because when I was a commercial diver, I was stationed in Miami Beach for many years. The Captain Dan started out her life as a Coast Guard buoy tender, and her name was the Hollyhock. She was built in 1934. She served on the Great Lakes for many, many years. She's 175 feet long. And after the Great Lakes, she also did service for World War II and Korean War. She was transferred to Miami in 1962. And as a buoy tender, what they did was they go out and all those big ocean buoys you see out there, that they put them on the deck, they bring them into port, they sandblast them, they paint them, they put new chains on them, and they take them back out and they sink them again so ships don't run aground and bump into Florida. Sometimes that doesn't always work, but we have a lot of wrecks because the people can't pay attention to the buoys, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, when I was a commercial diver, the Hollyhock was right across the canal from me, and I saw her every day for many, many years. So after she was decommissioned, she became the Good News Mission ship. Christian organization owned and operated her for many years. But they failed to maintain her, and she was stationed in the Miami River. And after many years of neglect, she basically sank in the Miami River. She was purchased by the Pompano Beach Fishing Rodeo, and she was sunk in February of 1990. Now, at 175 feet long, she's sitting at a depth of 110 feet, sitting upright, totally intact. Now, here's a wreck that you can do many, many, many dives on. Complete penetration of the upper hallways, the bridge, the lower decks, the engine room, and all the holds. The main deck forward of the bridge is flat, where all the buoys were hoisted onto the main deck, where they operated and repaired the buoys, repaired the chains. The bow is intact. You can go inside the bow. You can travel the entire length of the ship inside all the hallways. There's a ton of stuff going on the Captain Dan, and it's named after Captain Dan Guernsey, which was a beloved captain of the fishing fleet here in South Broward. So the Captain Dan is really a dive not to be missed. And at 110 feet, you can spend a fair amount of time on that as well. The next one, moving on to the Gem Atria. Now this one is actually named the Poinciana. The reason that I know that is that because, we'll start where she was built. She was built in 1961. She's a Dutch freighter, 227 feet long. She operated in the North Sea and the Cayman Islands. And in 1982, she ran aground, and she was then moored on the Miami River. She was loaded with cargo drums in the Miami River. The cargo shifted. I guess one of the bilge pumps failed. She rolled over in the Miami River, and that's when I got to meet the Poinciana. Ocean Salvors got the job to raise the Poinciana. And there you see the Poinciana leaning in the Miami River. And my company and I, with my fellow divers, you can see a yellow boom around the hull of the ship. That's to contain all the hydraulic oil and diesel fuel that was leaking. And Lance, being a happy diver, got to jump in the water and do all the diesel oil and hydraulic fluid and start buttoning up all the holes so we could put hydraulic pumps on her and raise her. So the Poinciana is dear to my heart because I got to work on her personally and raise her with Ocean Salvors. So after she was raised, she was bought, she was cleaned up, and she was sunk in September of 1987. And she's sitting right around, I believe, 112 feet. So 227 feet long. She's also got a fair amount of things to explore. She's been through hurricanes. She has a slight list to port. The stern is intact. The midships are intact. You can do a lot of exploration and penetration through the stern, the bridge, the forward holds, and throughout the entire bow. So the Gem Atria is a great dive, not that deep. Lot of life, usually good currents running on the Gem Atria, and a lot of great visibility. It's always a fun dive on that one. So, one more thing about the Gem Atria. In 1992, the Hurricane Andrew pushed her to 141 feet. So you went from 112. Hurricane Andrew took a 227-foot ship and moved her out to 141 foot of depth. So it's a deeper dive now. but still a lot of fun. Definitely advanced diving if you want to get into that. Definitely sign up for that one. Let's see, moving right along. Now the Rebel and the Mercedes. The Rebel was very near the Mercedes, so I'm doing these two together. The Mercedes was built in 1952. She's 194 feet long. She was built in Hamburg, Germany. She was sold in 1963 under the name of Rosita Maria, and in 1976 sold to the Panamanian government. She was renamed the Mercedes, and then a storm ran her aground off of West Palm Beach in 1984. And there are pictures of her running aground off of somebody's backyard. You can see, there she is, and you can see the expensive pool and all those rich people houses, and now they have a big old freighter for a backyard ornament. So she was there for many years, a while, almost a whole year before they could figure out how to get. She's high and dry there, so that was a big operation to get her off. So in March of 1985, she was towed off the beach, and she was sunk the same year in 85. She's sitting in around 110 feet of water. She's broken up pretty much now due to several hurricanes, but it's a great dive. As you can see the stern is intact, almost separated from the midships. The bow is a little more twisted now. There's a lot of lionfish hunting on that wreck. She went down at 85, so everybody's been diving her for many, many years. Lots of life on there, great photography going on. And then the Rebel, which is not that far from the Mercedes. The Rebel was built in 1940. She's 135 feet long. She was built in the Netherlands. 40 years of service. She was sold to Panama in 1981. And then she was seized for drugs in 1984, another drug seizure. So she's 110 feet deep, and she was sunk in July of 1985. So they're both sunk the same year, same amount of growth, very similar freighters, coastal freighters, tremendous amount of life, and they're both tremendous dives. There's always a lot of lionfish, sea turtles, nurse sharks are very prominent on these wrecks, and occasional Goliath groupers. So it's another one of those pair of wrecks. You can usually do a double dip because they're so close together. You can do the Mercedes on one dive and the Rebel on another. So that's a lot of fun. Who's next? The TENNECO Towers. This is south of Port Everglades on the Dania Beach, near Dania Beach. This was the TENNECO Towers, obviously named from the TENNECO Oil Company. The TENNECO Oil Company donated large oil rig, and they sank 5 large pieces in 1985. And you can see from this slate, they're sitting in an east to west line, all these sections of oil from shallow to deep. The shallowest is 95 feet. The second one's around 110 feet. You can see the 2 oil rigs that got, during the hurricanes, collided together. And the top is around 75 feet. And the third section's at 190 feet, which is a great deep dive for advanced divers when you're starting to get into advanced nitrox and decompression procedures. Now, the thing about the towers is you can see they're open. They're the pontoons, the legs, and you get a lot of current going through the open legs. And a lot of current means a lot of life, a lot of nutrients coming through all the sea fans, the coral. It's a tremendous drift dive. There's usually a lot of current going through there. The visibility is great. And there's so much to see on the TENNECO Towers. God, I think me and Bill Rushman and Owen Wilson and TJ and the Big Dive Club love the TENNECO Towers. We find lots of shells. The Big Dive Club loves collecting shells. I think I got 3 Murex shells on one dive. We always take dead shells, nothing live. But it's great for shell collecting. You dig around the sand. It's been down for a long time. Tremendous amount of growth. And the depth ranges from 75 to 110. So you can pick the level that you want to go to. And there's platforms below, a little deeper than 75. So it's just so much going on. So the TENNECO Towers are definitely something you don't want to miss. Let's see. Now we're going to go to the next. Now we're going to go north a little bit. Now, These next two wrecks that I'm going to talk about, they're written up. These are wrecks that were sunk during World War II. They were torpedoed. This is a great book, all about the wrecks that were sunk off of Cape Canaveral to Jupiter. Tremendous amount of history in this book. And the first one we're going to do is the Amazon. This is off the Fort Pierce, Jupiter area. The Amazon was a Dutch freighter built in 1922. She's 255 feet long. She's at a depth of about 90 feet. She was, during World War II, carrying cargo along the eastern seaboard of the United States and the Caribbean. In April of 1942, she was leaving Haiti with a cargo of coffee, sizzle, coca, orange peels, and mail. Now, she's traveling blacked out along the coast of Florida in 1942, and you know what was going on. The U-boats were lurking off the coast of Florida. We know all about Operation Drumbeat, and it was basically a free-for-all for the U-boats because America was not prepared for defense of the U-boats. So at 3:40 a.m. on the morning of May 6, 1942, the U-333 is lurking off the coast of Florida, Fort Pierce area, and Captain Lieutenant Peter Kremer fired 2 torpedoes into the side of the Amazon. And she had 20 people survived, over 14 dead, and she's sitting in 90 feet of water. She's broken up. Fort Pierce diving, Jupiter diving, it's a little bit colder water. The upwellings are different. The visibility is not what you're used to over here in Fort Lauderdale and Pompano and West Palm Beach. But this is a dive not to be missed. You are diving on a piece of World War II history here. And the anchors are still intact. You can find the anchors. The boilers are visible. The engine is just aft of the boilers, and the stern is upside down, but you can penetrate the stern and get up beside the stern. So this is a tremendous historical wreck sunk by a U-boat, and I think it's definitely should be on everybody's list when you're diving up in the Fort Pierce, Jupiter area. Now, that was sunk on May 6, 1942. So now we're going to go to the next World War II story, the Halsey. Now, she's also off of Fort Pierce and Jupiter. She's actually located south of the Amazon, also in about 90 feet of water. She was built in California, 1920, 435 feet long. She is massive. She was an oil tanker. She left Corpus Christi, Texas, with over 40,000 barrels of fuel oil. And she was bound for New York City. 32 crewmen were on board at 4:55 a.m. on May 6th. 1942, the U-333 again attacked off of Fort Pierce, and Captain Lieutenant Peter Kremer was waiting for sitting ducks traveling. There was heavy traffic between Texas and New York because New York desperately needed fuel oil, and Texas was supplying all the fuel oil for World War II. So I don't remember how many people perished on this, but she burned for days. You can see her sinking there. After that photograph was taken by a reconnaissance airplane after she was torpedoed. So she's sitting in 90 feet of water. The bow is facing south. She's broken up in sections. The port anchor is still intact. The midships is upside down, and the stern is intact, sitting upright. So she's been ravaged by storms, but Amy has been diving on this. My buddy from New York, John Chaparty, has dove on this. TJ, Daniel, everybody from the Big Dive Club loves diving this wreck. So much history to it, and there's so much going on. The life that's going on, she was sunk in 1942, so you can imagine the growth that's going on. Sea anemones, corals, sea turtles.
TJ just reminded me I found my shark tooth there.
Ah, all right. So I've been diving for over 45 years. Amy's first dive on the Halsey. Guess who finds a shark tooth? I have never found a shark tooth on the east coast of Florida. Thank you for reminding me. Amy's first dive, shark tooth, bingo. Go, stop talking to me. Anyway, so Amy loves that dive for obvious reasons. So a lot of history going on off of Fort Pierce and Jupiter. All right, moving on to the next wreck. This is actually one of my most favorite wrecks. Now, what makes your wreck favorite? I don't know, but the Sky Cliff off of Boynton Beach, sitting in 205 feet of water, I just find her majestic. Her bow is facing south. She's a deep wreck. The current in Boynton Beach is phenomenal, which means visibility is phenomenal. She's loaded with bull sharks, amberjacks, huge pelagics. The visibility almost always is just phenomenal. And it's obviously a hot drop, heavy duty currents most of the time. But as you can see, the bow's she's facing south. She's sitting upright. She was, the Sky Cliff was built in 1961. She was built in Japan. She's over 317 feet long, so she's very big. In 1977, she was sold. She was renamed the Sea Venture. She was sold again in 1983 and given the name Sky Cliff. She was sunk in November of 1991. She's upright, 200 feet of water. The bow is facing south, and she's a great drift dive. Now, the thing is, you see the bow, when you do a hot drop, you usually float right into, Nicole, if you can back up once, just follow me. Just look at the bow. You usually land right around 205. You go straight up the bow, and then you start heading north. Now you've got a deck cabin there. You've got upright mast, huge cargo holds, and you're drifting north towards the stern. And when you get to the bottom of that bridge, you see the big structure there? That's 5 floors of cabins, alleyways, and the bridge sits on top of that. You're looking at almost 70 feet of a wall, and that's really majestic when you hit that wall and you go straight up over the bridge. You can see the port bridge, the port wing bridge, the starboard wing bridge. You see the smokestack, and then you continue down to the stern, and you can go into the hallways through there, and then after 20-25 minutes, you shoot your lift bag. And it's just a tremendous dive. And then after you shoot your lift bag, the dive boat's following your lift bag. You're going to do about maybe, I don't know, 45, anywhere between 45 minutes of decompression. That varies on your mix. So again, this is going to require a set of doubles, decompression bottles, definitely 2 or 3 computers. There's me. I think Daniel took that picture. You can see the hallways, tremendous amount of growth on the Sky Cliff. It's just one of those phenomenal dives. I love doing the Sky Cliff.
Which book did you look at for the Halsey?
Oh, for the Halsey, I'm going to show. This is, somebody's asking about the. Can you see that? This is a tremendous book. I'm going to
say the title.
It's Diver's Guide to Shipwrecks, Cape Canaveral to Jupiter Light by Mark Mondano. Anyway, we're gonna do a little bit of books real quick at the end. So the Sky Cliff is definitely not to be missed. Sign up for, you want to do advanced nitrox and decompression procedures with somebody at 4C, so you can learn how to do doubles, rig your sling bottles, learn how to shoot a lift bag, and get used to hot drops with, 4 to 5 knots. We dove the Sky Cliff once. It was 4.5 to 5 knot current. We covered 5 miles in 45 minutes by the time we were done with our decompression. So it's, you need to have your experience. You gain experience. You just, when you start hitting all that gear and a lot of current, shooting lift bags, you got to start off on the shallow wrecks, learn your skills shallow, and you start doing progressively deeper dives. It's a lot of fun. And speaking of deeper dives, one of my next favorites, which everybody knows, the Hydro Atlantic. Now, the Hydro Atlantic was built in Maryland in 1905. She was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers hopper dredge named the Delaware. She's 315 feet long, also massive. In 1950, she was sold and renamed the Sand Captain. In 1961, she was renamed the Ezra Zanzibar. And then in 1968, she was renamed the Hydro Atlantic. After many years of service, she was on her way to being towed to Brownsville, Texas, to be scrapped after many, many years of service. And she sprung a leak right off of Boca. And she was being towed. The tow line snapped, and you know what? She never got to be scrapped, and she became one of the most famous dives off of Southeast Florida. And she's sitting at about 180 feet. The Hydro Atlantic is dove by everybody who loves spearfishing, photography. It's just a tremendous wreck. She's huge, 315 feet. She was sunk in December of 1987. As you can see, the bottom right, she's not the most prettiest looking thing, but there was so much machinery, cranes, all sorts of stuff. Oh, that's me waving. I think Daniel took that. Oh, thank you, Daniel. That's me on the hydro, having fun. So she's been down for so long. Tremendous amount of growth, tremendous amount of spearfishing. The thing about deeper wrecks, people say, why do you go deep? Well, the thing about deeper wrecks is that not a lot of people dive them. And it's like virgin forest. You know, some of the shallow wrecks, they get a lot of traffic every weekend with thousands of divers. The deeper wrecks have huge sea fans, coral growths that they're untouched almost because they're so rarely visited. So she's sitting upright. The bow is facing south. She's got a large deck crane, open holds. The engine room is tremendous penetration on the engine room. You can go all over the hydro. It's just so much to see. That's another one of those wrecks that you can dive the rest of your life. And every time you dive it, it's just great. So again, it's a deeper dive, a lot of shell collecting at the bottom. We like going to the bottom where the hull meets the sand and dig out a little bit, and you find a lot of wonderful shells. The Big Dive Club loves collecting shells. So definitely you want to make sure you do the hydro. Let's see, who's next? How are we doing on time? Not too bad, I guess. I hope you guys are still awake. Get yourself a cooling beverage here. We have a little, keep yourself hydrated during these long dive periods. The next one is the Miracle of Life. The Miracle of Life was originally named the Miss Lourdes, and there was a guy named Daniel Fasano, and he was head of the Miracle of Life Foundation, and he was a great proponent of getting the ship sunk, and unfortunately he passed away days after the sinking of the Miracle of Life, named after his foundation. Done a lot for the community of South Florida. She was built in 1971. She's 167 feet long, and she's a coastal freighter. And lo and behold, she was seized by customs for probably transporting that happy weed. So good for us, bad for them. She's sitting at a depth of 145 feet. Now the Miracle of Life, as you can see, she's open with the bridge towards the bow. The bow is facing south. Usually the currents run north, so if you do a hot drop, you're going to land on the bow first and work your way aft. Sometimes they'll tie in. The Miracle of Life has got tremendous penetration through the bridge. You can work your way down right to the main hold, going from the bridge, working down. There's my beautiful mermaid, Amy. That's her deepest dive so far at 147 feet. She was very happy to do that dive. She did wonderful. You can see a mermaid to the left. There's a statue of a mermaid to the left. The growth on the Miracle of Life, again, tremendous amount of fish sitting upright, a lot of currents going through this wreck, lots of schooling fish, amberjacks, see stingrays, sea turtles on this wreck, cup corals are phenomenal, macro photography, phenomenal, spearfishing, phenomenal. And for those of you who like crawling around tight spaces, me and the Big Dive Club, we like going down the stairwells, through the engine room, through the hallways, and popping out the stern. And once you get to the stern, you're at 147 feet. You look in the sand real quick, pick up a couple of shells, shoot your bag, and there you go. So the Miracle of Life is definitely not to be missed. So that's also could be a tie-in or a hot drop. So you want to get some practice in doing your hot drops on your deeper wrecks. It's a lot of fun. Okay. Coming near the end of my list. Now, again, we did 19 wrecks. This is going to be the last one for tonight. We'll do some questions and answer period, I guess. But this is a small smattering of our favorite wrecks. There are, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of wrecks from Port Pierce to the Keys, the Gulf of Mexico, the Panhandle. So let's start getting out there and dive into history. There's a lot of history going on there. It's just not a piece of rusting steel. There's a lot going on. And I think you can enjoy your dive a little bit more once you realize what you're diving on and what the history is behind all of these wrecks. All right, last but not least, the Guy Harvey, named after artist Guy Harvey. You're familiar with him. He was helped fund the sinking. It's a Dutch coastal freighter. She was built in 1957. She's 197 feet long. You can see she's a very big freighter. A lot to see on that one. The ownership of the coastal freighter changed several times, and then she was abandoned in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And then she was just sitting there in 1997, and then Guy Harvey and Pompano Beach Fishing Rodeo took possession of her, cleaned her up, and then sunk her sometime in 1997 at 145 feet. So the Guy Harvey is another semi-deep dive, sitting upright, twisted through very merry hurricane, several hurricanes, a lot of growth. I don't know what else I could say about the Guy Harvey, but it's definitely one of those ones that it cannot be missed. A lot of penetration through the holds. The bridge is intact. The midships is kind of splayed open a little bit. The bow is intact. Again, a lot of life because she is sitting deep. You get bigger fish congregating on the Guy Harvey. I don't know, another one of those wrecks that I could die the rest of my life. There's always something new going on the Guy Harvey. I think we've seen a lot of sharks on the Guy Harvey. Big schools of barracuda are always hanging out on the bridge. And now I'm into killing lionfish, so now I always bring my lionfish spear gun with me because that's my new thing. So anyway, great place for photography. Again, macro photography. I don't know. What else can I say about the Guy Harvey? Other than that's got to be on your list amongst many, many others. So that's the last wreck of my list. I want to thank, there's Daniel, there's Todd, TJ, Glume, and Nicole. Thank Nicole again. You know, you thank Nicole because she's the one that took the time. I sent her about 1,000 pictures and she had to organize them all to put this together. Real quick, thanking the 4C and Skip and Kathy again, and hi to Gary. Hi, Gary. Let's go to what you need for some deep diving. You need some good wreck reels. You need a primary reel, at least 250 feet to 300 feet if you're going to do the deep dives. You need a good 6-foot lift bag, not to be confused with your safety sausage. This is for safety deployment only. So you've got a 6-foot sausage or a lift bag, minimum 50 pounds of lift. You've got your smaller reels for your shallower dives. This has got maybe 150 feet. It's 4C has your safety reels or smaller reels. And then they also have the Dive Right primary reel. Now these carry 250 to 300 feet of line. This is necessary for your deep diving because you're going to have a lot of scope. If you're at a wreck of 200, and you definitely need at least 300 feet. So you need a primary reel. Oh, thank you. So here's another example of a primary reel, 250, 300 feet. Have a backup reel, have a backup lift bag. Here's an example of an open-ended lift bag. I'm not going to open it up, but they're about 2 or 3 feet with an open end, 50 pounds minimum lift. 4C has different lift bags. Now here's the thing. I said I dive with 3 computers. On my medium dives, I dive with 2 computers. Medium being 120 to 150. When I start going deeper than that, I dive with a minimum of 3 computers. Number 1 computer in my book is the Shearwater. Amy just bought one of these, so now she's got one of these. This is my primary. 5 gases. You need to have one of those. And then Dive Right Night-Tech Duo multi-gas computer. You've got to have backups because if you only have 1 computer, no good. If you're doing a deep dive, you know, the 190, 200 range, 2 computers, no good. So when me, TJ, Daniel, or Bill, the Big Dive Club, are doing deep dives, we have 2 or 3 computers, and we put all of our decompression stops on duct tape on our fins. If we have massive computer failures, all of our decompression stops and emergency procedures are taped to our tops of our fins. So, you know, when your computer takes a crap, or if it does, that's not the time to whip out tables and start figuring out what you should be doing and how long it's going to take you to get back to the surface. So there's a lot going on, and you're going to learn about your gas mixes, your decompression procedures, and advanced nitrox and decompression. So sign up for these courses. Start doing the deeper dives. Oh, books. Okay, real quick, books. You got to get these books at 4C, Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale. These are invaluable books that you must need for history. Wrecks of Broward, diving locations, Guide to the Keys, Florida Keys, slates. Look, 4C I have every slate 4C ever put out. World War II buffs. I have every book listed of all the U-boat logs, so I can look up any U-boat and whatever wreck they sunk, I can find it. I've got about a dozen U-boat log books from Nazi submarines and all the U-boats. So I've got books on the Keys. You got to just dive Miami, treasure galleon books, shipwrecks of Broward County, Key West. Okay, that's enough of that. Oh, here, I'll save the best for last. Somebody made the cover of Dive Adventures. I used to write for a magazine for many, many years, so that was a lot of fun too. Anyway, I had a lot of fun.
You're going to give me a list of these books so I can let people know which ones you're talking about.
I've got a list of books.
Awesome.
Fortunately, can order all these books, and they have a lot of them on. Oh, here. Oh, Michael Barnett. I forgot to mention Michael Barnett. I can't stop talking. I'm sorry. These are two. You must have these. 4C has them. Shipwrecks by Michael Barnett and Sunshine State and the Encyclopedia of Shipwrecks. So those, Michael Barnett lives in Tampa. You've seen him on TV, Underwater or Expeditions Unknown. He was just doing a documentary. He's been diving all over Florida. He's a tremendous author. And anyway, don't get me started on books and author.
Lance. So if you guys have any questions, write them so we can get them answered. The first one is people are asking about any good wrecks that you could just name off real quick in the Dade County area.
Yeah, there is. It's been years since I dove Miami, believe it or not. I've got a book on Miami. It's right here. I just had it here somewhere. There's the Ultra Freeze. There is. Where's my book on Miami?
I don't know. What does it look like?
It's been, when I was a commercial diver in the early 80s, I did a bunch of diving in Miami. There is all depth ranges of Miami. No, that's not it. Anyway, off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, here we go. I found it. Ha! All right, just off the top of my head, this is a great book.
Say the name.
Dive Miami by Joe Auerbach. A couple of wrecks that I have been on in Miami. You've got going from north to south, you got the TENNECO oil rigs, which is Dania, but then you've got a Liberty ship, the Lotus, the Crane wreck, the Deep Freeze, Captain Joel's Reef. Let's see. There's a Miracle Express down there. It's not too deep. The Belcher Barge, the Belzona Triangle, the Orion is 95 feet deep. So this book, Dive Miami, I mean, you could also Google it, but there's a ton of stuff going on in Miami. I just don't dive Miami that much anymore because I don't work down there anymore. I live in Pompano, Coconut Creek. So Miami's definitely got wrecks.
Awesome. We have another question coming in, and they want to know if you have any insight onto any wrecks that might be sunk in the future in the South Florida area.
I heard that there's a submarine coming off. Is that true? Anybody can confirm that? I heard that we want to sink a submarine off the coast of Florida.
I heard a little rumor that we lost the submarine.
Did we? Oh.
Maybe, but I'm not totally sure. If anybody else knows, comment and let us know for sure. But I heard a rumor that we were supposed to get it and now it's not coming. But yeah, do you know any other ones besides that one?
Well, if Gary Thomas owns any boats, I'm gonna go sink one of his, so we can do that. Does Gary own any boats?
Yeah, I don't know. Gary, do you own a boat that I don't know about? I did hear from the guys from Shipwreck Park in Pompano Beach, the ones who sank the Lady Luck and the Okinawa, that there are some plans, but they haven't released anything yet. So I really can't comment on it, but there are some plans to put some more stuff down to make more of the Okinawa area have a little bit more structure, so it's not just so there is some plans to do that. I don't know when that's happening. I don't know exactly what the medium they're going to use, but there is plans to do that in the future.
Yeah, the Okinawa, I think, was the last one that we sank, I believe. I'm not sure. But there was a lot of wrecks that I didn't cover. The Copenhagen, the Rapa Nui barge, the Okinawa. I mean, it's just too much.
Really? Sorry.
So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, Actually, I haven't dove that myself yet. That's one I haven't been on.
I never dove it. I was out there and saw it flip and never dive. So, because we said it was too, unsafe to go because people were trying to go underneath it with lots of rebar. So I don't know what's become of that wreck since a lot of the dive boats don't go there. There's only one dive company I know that goes there, but everyone's been going to Okinawa, and I was very lucky to see that one sink. And then I was one of the first divers on that dive site after it sank. It sank, and they let us go an hour after it sank because it was pristine. It dropped exactly the way it's supposed to. And visibility was gorgeous. And so if you ever go on Google and search the Okinawa wreck, all those photos that are there are usually my photos from what I think. So I know a lot of the sunny.org uses them for promotional stuff and some other dive boat companies. So it was really great to be a part of that. And that's why I added into the slideshow the pictures that I had of the Lady Luck, because I also got to dive that not right after it sank because there was a lot of current and no viz when it sank. Only a certain group of people got to see it when it first sank, but I went like 3 days later and got photos. And so it's so neat to be able to do a comparison of like when it sank and then now. And it's just, I mean, it's only been 4 years and here we are. And it's got
an underwater garden. And it really is.
That mermaid cocktail waitress picture I put up, that photo is actually not the current. Her arm is ripped off now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then also in the Okinawa, if you see pictures with the mermaid and she's holding the globe, that one, the globe is gone because it popped off other divers have ripped it off. And so they've tried to replace it and it rips off. And so it's interesting how the way a wreck will age, and it'll be interesting to see how much will stay intact. And I did maybe hear a little, already told me that they might try and add some more stuff to the Lady Luck if it starts to disintegrate a little bit. So let's see. Let me go over here to the, Jeff Nelson from 4C said that the sub is a no-go. So they had no for it. So it was going to cost, Todd Findleson said it was going to cost over $1 million, and we don't have that right now. He's also mentioning that there's a new wreck sunk in Fort Pierce and Stewart called the Volsey Bernadetti.
Oh, yeah. We dove on that. Amy loves that. I love that. TJ loves that. That's a great dive. Absolutely. There's a lot going on up in Stewart area, Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce. Tremendous stuff going on up there.
Yeah, so guys, like we said, there's a lot of wrecks to be seen right here on the South Florida coastline. And you can get to any of those by booking a dive boat with us at 4C.
Oh, absolutely. Props to Captain Jerry and Parrot Island Adventures and South Florida Diving Headquarters. Jeff, I've been diving with these guys for 1,000 years and top-notch operations.
Yeah, and we can book trips all the way up to Jupiter. We've got boats up there that we work with, and we have boats down in the Keys. So if you guys are interested in wreck diving, you can always give us a call, come into the store, or go to our website at www.force-e.com, and we can get you booked on any of these boats. And the reason why you want to get booked through 4C, okay? Don't go straight to the boats. Go to 4C, because we have our frequent diver card. And so when you book a boat with us and you get 10 slots filled on the frequent diver card, then you get a $50 gift card to 4C. Who says thumbs up on that? Everyone hit thumbs up on the video. Woo! Anyways, so guys, again, we'll help you get diving on these wrecks. If you need some more education and some more skill sets, we also have lots of great instructors that teach some great classes. And, who's that?
That's Reefy.
Aw, Gary loves cats, so.
Not this one.
He usually likes hairless.
Hi, Reefy.
Anywho's, but yeah, thank you, Lance, so much for such
I had fun.
presentation. I don't think we have any other. I don't think I have any more questions. It doesn't look like it. Just people are chattering. They had a lot of fun having a time with you. So you'll get to see those comments a little bit later. But guys, stay tuned. We're going to be doing some more of these coming up. I'm going to try and schedule something for Earth Day. So stay tuned. And make sure that you're following Facebook on the Facebook page. So you got to make sure not to just like it, but to make sure to turn on those notifications for following, because then you can make sure that you never miss anything that Forcey's putting out. All right, guys. So thank you, everybody, for coming on this journey with us. And thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. And remember, dive into history.
There you go. And we hope to see you guys soon. Bye.